Springtime is also when dedicated anglers begin searching Sugar Creek for the elusive smallmouth bass and other fish. And for those who simply enjoy the sights, smells, and sounds of spring, Sugar Creek abounds in renewed natural beauty. Summertime sees the highest levels of recreational activity. Rental canoes busy the waters from Crawfordsville to Deers Mill. Fishermen pulled their catches from deep holes, and kids tube, swim, or splash along on a hot, humid Indiana afternoon. Summer is also a special time for the amateur naturalist in all of us. Wildflowers and wildlife abound, and those who are silent and patient are often rewarded with a special view on the banks of Sugar Creek. Of course, autumn in Montgomery County would not be the same without the brilliant colors of Creekside. The yellow-orange glow of sugar maple leaves appropriately seem to last the longest before falling into their namesake for a long and gentle journey downstream. While most are content to leave Hoosier winters to themselves, those who venture out into the chill often find the freshly frosted landscapes of Sugar Creek will warm them deep inside. Though many kinds of fish and animals are no longer found in Montgomery County, the wildlife remaining on Sugar Creek is a wonderful example of the adaptability of an ecosystem under pressure. Canada geese, green heron, and great blue heron, turkey vultures, red-tailed hawks, kingfishers, and many different kinds of owls and ducks are found circling high above, fishing or floating along. Songbirds of all description make the creek a temporary or permanent home. And even wild turkeys, ospreys, and an occasional bald eagle may be seen keeping vigil here. White-tailed deer, coyote, raccoon, beaver, muskrat, fox, possum, and squirrels are ever present in the water's reflection, leaving their tracks behind for all to see. At the water's edge, you'll find turtles, frogs, and future frogs, toads, and snakes, leading their amphibious lives, sharing their shoreline with the ever-populous insect world, from water bugs to winged wayfarers. While under the ripples and reflections, mussels and crayfish face the currents, with smallmouth bass, sunfish, quillback, shad, gar, carp, multiple minnows, and many more.
Rock bass are quite common. You will have a few striped bass, or white bass I should say. Then a lot of suckers and red horse, probably 6 or 7 or 8 species of those will be there. And then a lot of darters, including some in the past have been taken, are now endangered species. Some we haven't seen recently, but we suspect they may be there in small numbers. Mad toms, yellow bullheads, channel catfish. There's a whole big variety. You could go, and if you could completely assess from a single pool and riffle in the middle Sugar Creek, you would probably find between 40 and 50 species of fish.
Stretching up from its banks and reaching out over its surface, Sugar Creek is blessed for most of its route with tree-lined shores. The stands of beech, maple, sycamore, oak, hickory, walnut, and others, known as riparian or riverside vegetation, protect the creek by regulating its water temperature with shade and filtering silty runoff from farm fields through their roots.
If we were to go back to the early 1800s and went along our streams, you probably, except for the bigger rivers, you wouldn't see any sunlight at all, and Sugar Creek still has that. It has a canopy of riparian trees that have crowns that go out the open areas and shade the whole stream. And that riparian zone is absolutely critical to the health of a stream. flipping the coin. If I came in with modern day equipment to early 1800s Indiana and wanted to do maximum damage to the stream intentionally, what I would do is pick a bulldozer and I would go along the sides of the stream and I would bulldoze, I would cut all the trees and I would bulldoze that whole mess in a corridor. I don't know how wide. That would essentially change that stream. Even though the rest of the watershed, the rest of Indiana would be completely clothed with trees, if I wanted to do that. Now, what we have had happen in that, 150, 175 years, has been the clearing of land away from the streams into fields, and that riparian protection has been gradually eroded. It goes back and forth, but for a lot of our streams, it consists of only a very thin band. And as soon as that band goes, well, you've got essentially what I described earlier. You've got no protection from what goes on beyond the banks. And not only is the shade important from a heating of the water standpoint, but it also is important from a standpoint of dissolved oxygen balance. It's important from the standpoint of intercepting eroded materials and leach materials, including nutrients and pesticides and herbicides that come from the fields flanking it. That narrow band of vegetation is the buffer between agricultural fields and the water itself. And it's extremely important. Everything we find out about it emphasizes the importance of maintaining a continuous riparian vegetation zone. We don't know exactly how wide it should be, but it should certainly be wider than probably 50 feet. Although it depends on the size of the stream, I guess, too. For very tiny streams, why any riparian vegetation is helpful. We have a discontinuous riparian zone, and at least in the streams that I have studied, we don't have good riparian protection. And this is something that we really need to work at, I think, to reestablish if we want to have good, healthy stream and lake ecosystems.
Along with the traditional Indiana hardwoods in the stream's riparian zone, white pine, Scotch pine, and even hemlock trees appear along Sugar Creek. The hemlocks are especially unusual, appearing at Pine Hills Nature Preserve, perhaps the most diverse natural area in the state, and increasing their numbers further up the creek each year. Usually hemlocks are found at least 150 miles further north. The hemlocks of Montgomery County are yet another gift from Sugar Creek's glacial beginnings. You can read the history of the creek along its shoreline. Its waters have carved through rock and ridgeline to expose geologic patterns hundreds of millions of years old. The canyons, formations of limestone, and shale along Sugar Creek are no less impressive, on a smaller scale, than their red rock cousins of the Southwest. This creek is a geologist's, biologist's, and naturalist's dream.